Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Daily Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Fernando Lopez, and today I have the privilege of interviewing Mort Orman, MD. He is an anger elimination internal medicine physician who has 40 years of success as an anger elimination expert. He's the creator of I Can't Believe I'm Not Angry Anymore, which is a 10-session quick anger mastery program that has proven to be extremely effective in helping people overcome long-lasting anger issues. Dr. Orman has led more than 100 anger and stress elimination workshops for doctors, nurses, lawyers, business owners, entrepreneurs, other professionals, and even the FBI. He has also been the official sponsor of the National Stress Awareness Month in the US every April since 1982. Dr. Mort, welcome. How are you?
I'm fine. Thanks for having me, Fernando.
You are very welcome. So happy to be speaking with you. We've been chatting in the last few weeks about collaborating, and I just thought, you know what? Let me interview you, and so others can meet you and experience what you have been doing for so long. 40 years is 44 decades. That's
By my
I've,
math, by my math, it is.
I've been alive for about that long, so you have been doing this for about as long as I've been alive. So why do you do what you do?
Well, I mean, I originally got into the stress and anger field as a matter of self-preservation. I mean, being a physician, going through medical training, even before medical training, when I was in college and even back to high school, I had a lot of social anxiety and a lot of stress-related issues. And when I got into practice, opened my own internal medicine practice, those stresses compounded, and I had the stress of running a small business, which you don't get prepared for, in medical school. So there was just a lot of stress. Plus, I was seeing my patients come in, and they were having lots of stress, and they were looking to me, to help them with their stress, and I couldn't figure out how to deal with my own. So it was a little bit it was a difficult situation. I had to pretend that I had it all together. You're a doctor, you're supposed to, have everything under control. And even though I knew I didn't, I had to put on that air for my patients. That was another added stress, having to always, sort of pretend that you have things more together than you actually do. So I had a lot of stuff going on, and none of the traditional stress management techniques, and I tried almost all of them, but they really didn't help that much. So I actually started doing some personal development work, which most doctors and busy people don't really make the commitment to do because they're just so busy. And I thought it was important because I knew, I could see how damaging stress was to people's health, and I didn't want that happening to me. So that motivated me, and I did some personal development work, and I started discovering lots of things that I was never taught about human beings in medical school. And it just sort of opened my horizons, and I started questioning a lot of things that I once thought were true. And through a couple of years of personal development work, I really discovered a lot of things I believed were true weren't. And that led me to question a lot of the dogma about stress and anger, and to wonder, how much of that isn't true. And when I dug into it, and really did some concentrated study, I found that, a lot of what we were being told today about anger and stress just isn't true. And it's really, it keeps us trapped in having anger and stress that we could easily get rid of if we just had the right understandings, and we could get free of a lot of these myths and misconceptions that have been given to us by experts in the field. So that's why I got into it. And when I saw that it was what I was learning was making a difference for me, I realized I needed, given the health impact for human beings, I needed to make it available to people because it's a really big factor in healthcare.
And as an internal medicine physician, the way I heard your explanation there, I experienced as you kind of like started a new phase in your life where you started studying again, and it was self-help or personal development.
Mm-hmm.
And you then discover things you didn't learn in the medicine school.
Yeah,
Uh,
in medical school, they teach you about hearts and lungs and kidneys and livers. They don't teach you a whole lot about the human beings that, own those organs and have those organs. So, and then they throw you out and, into the world and say, go practice medicine. And you have all these human beings coming to you with all kinds of problems in their own lives that they're looking for help or guidance or just sympathy or whatever they're looking for. And you don't get prepared in medical school for dealing with all that other stuff. You get a good preparation for the physical stuff and the health stuff and the illness stuff, but you know, uh, helping people, coaching people to deal with their various problems and stresses in life and things they run into that they bring to their doctors, we're not really well prepared for.
yeah. I'm just thinking here as I don't have that many friends that are doctors, so I don't know how much stress they're in. But one of them has told me, brought up a piece of information that I need to fact check, but it had to do with suicide.
Yeah.
Do you know among physicians? And I thought, what? Come on, these people save lives. Why would they do that to themselves?
Yeah, it's high. I mean, it's high in a lot of medical professions. So dentists are very high, physicians are high, even psychiatrists and psychologists have a high suicide rate. You would think they would be the lowest, but they're not. So in the helping professions in general, there is a higher rate of suicide than in many other professions, and it's a real problem, a real concern for the various professions.
With your program, 10 weeks, um, why, or I don't know if it's 10 weeks, says here's 10 sessions. Why 10 sessions?
Well, I just found I was able to do it in that shorter period of time. Once I learned myself, I used to be a very angry guy back when I'm in my 20s and 30s. I used to be a real hothead. I used to I took up tennis in my late 20s and I took lessons from a pro and I got to play pretty well. But if I would miss an easy shot, I would get furious with myself. If I lost a point I thought I should have won, I would just start stomping around on the tennis court and thrashing my racket against whatever was nearby and cursing and yelling and bothering the people, playing on either side of me and getting dirty looks and sometimes comments from that. And I couldn't control it. It was just, I wanted to, but I couldn't. I kept trying, and it didn't matter. I just kept doing it. And in fact, around that time, you're probably too young for this, but John McEnroe was in his heyday around that time. So he was on television all the time, and he was a hothead on the tennis court. He was yelling and screaming at the umpires and the players, and if lost points, he would stomp around and try to motivate himself and get himself geared up. And I saw a lot of myself in him. So, and that anger wasn't just limited to the tennis court. It came out in all areas of my life. So I would get angry at patients from time to time. I got angry at my parents frequently, and my sister, and in relationships with women. There was a lot of damage that all that anger did, and I'm seeing that happen in my life, and I'm wanting to stop being an angry person, and I can't figure out how to do it. So it was very frustrating, and that's why I say I really searched and searched and searched for solutions. Eventually, I discovered, how to stop being an angry person, and once I was able to do that, it was like, to me, that was like miraculous. I mean, I never thought I would ever be the kind of person who didn't get angry. And got to tell you, for the last 40 years, I discovered this about 40 years ago. For the last 40 years, I've hardly gotten angry at all. And if I get angry, I know how to make it go away very, very quickly. So I developed a system for dealing with anger and a similar system for dealing with other kinds of stressful problems I was experiencing. And the system is so powerful that I can really, for anger, a very specific problem, anger, I can teach somebody how to understand. And what the breakthrough was for me is being able to recognize the internal causes of anger. We all focus on the external causes, what other people are doing, what they say to us, what they do to us, they betray us, they steal from us, they lie to us, they disappoint us. or they yell at us or put us down, whatever they do, all the myriad of things. So we're all focused on, yeah, that made me angry, but it's not a one-to-one. It looks like it's a direct connection. Somebody does something, you feel the anger. It looks like it was a one-to-one, but there's actually something in the middle that you have to have in order to have the anger, and that's the internal interpretation, perception, beliefs, things like that we're programmed with all throughout our lives that get triggered by that behavior of other people or the world at large. And that's what's driving our anger. I didn't know that. I wasn't taught that in medical school. I had to figure it out and find it out on my own. But once I could see it, once I could see the dynamics, and once I could really pinpoint the internal causes, then I could say, okay, now I can see what's happening. Now I can step in and do something about it. And I did that, and I worked it regularly. And over a period of a year or so, having done that work constantly, frequently, because I was getting angry a lot, and I had a lot to practice with. After a while, you just reprogram yourself, and you just don't get angry anymore at things that used to get you angry because you don't see it the same way. You perceive it differently, you understand it differently. You realize where you made mistakes in the past and how you perceive things, and everything gets clearer. You get more of a reality-based understanding of what's going on, and then the anger just drops away. You don't have to punch anything. You don't have to run 5 miles. You don't have to take deep breaths. You don't have to do any of that anger management stuff. You just have to know how to see the situation differently or understand what's wrong with the way you're automatically programmed to see it. And so once I developed that system, it's actually an easy thing to teach people the system and to take them through it and to teach them some of the principles behind it, but then to practice with real live anger situations that occur in their own lives and show them how they can use this exact same system to diffuse those anger episodes. And then I found that after 10 one-hour sessions, you can learn that system. It's pretty simple. And you've got it for the rest of your life. And it'll work for you for the rest of your life if you work it. And you just get better and better at getting the result as you get more practice and more experience. And you see the impact. You see the anger just dissolve away in situations that in the past, that anger may have stayed on for days or weeks or months, and you wouldn't have been able to get rid of it. Now you got something similar situation. You can look at it, and in minutes, it's gone. And it may come back, 5 minutes later, but then you know exactly where it's coming from, and you know how to diffuse it. So it doesn't last very long. And that's the experience I had, and that's what I'm able to transfer to other people. It's very powerful and it's very quick. A lot of people think, this mastery concept, you need 10,000 hours before you get good at anything. Well, that may be true of martial arts. It may be true of flying a 747 or, but this is a very simple system that you can learn, in just a couple of sessions and then practice with it for another couple of sessions. And you've literally mastered it in a very short period of time. It's just a matter now you have to go out and use it and gain more experience and get more wins. But you literally can master that system, learn it and master it in 10 sessions. It's amazing. People don't believe that you can turn anger around like that, but you can. And I've done that with people who have been angry all their lives. And when they finally come to me, I teach them my system. We work for 10 sessions and boom, they don't get angry anymore. It's amazing. And people don't believe it, but it's actually true.
What was it like working with the FBI? And is there a lot of anger there? Was there a lot of anger?
Well, I find that when you get a bunch of, it was like 25 FBI agents in a room, and we had a couple hours. This was in Baltimore, the Baltimore branch of the FBI at the time. I was in Baltimore. And, they're just human beings. We're all human beings. We all get angry. They have circumstances, unique circumstances they have to deal with and put up with, and different triggers for what makes them angry. But we ultimately all get angry for the same internal mechanism. So it wasn't difficult to work with them. It wasn't, some complex thing. It was the same basic stuff that I experienced, the same issues that I had as a doctor, they had as an FBI agent. It's the same that other police officers, law enforcement officers have, that all people who get angry have. It's the same basic process. Same thing if you get angry at your wife or your kids or your employees or your staff. It's all for the same internal mechanism. And if you understand it in one place in your life, you'll see it popping, you'll understand it every time it comes up in every other area of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I learned something last year, or maybe it was 2 years ago, and from a book called Healing Back Pain.
Mm-hmm.
And that book that barely talked about back or the back, and it was about healing back pain. And what I learned about the book was the effect of rage and anger, or unresolved rage and anger, as it relates to back pain. So it's when I met you, I remember that book by Dr. John Sarno's, and I was like, okay, I think the universe is giving me another sign here that there's a huge demand to spread the word and your work to the world, not just for the emotional benefits, but also physical benefits.
Yeah. Well, anger can do a lot of things, including, cause back pain. It does that by causing tight muscles. So Sarno's theory is that, a lot of people, if they're in their 50s, 60s and have developed back pain, if you do x-rays of them or MRIs or CAT scans, you're going to find a lot of abnormalities. But by the same token, if you take a bunch of people off the street in that age group who aren't having back pain, never have back pain, and you do the same x-rays on, they're going to have the same or similar abnormalities. So Sarno realized that, well, just because you find something on an x-ray doesn't mean that that is the cause. And sometimes a lot of surgeons will, you got pain, we got an x-ray, you got a disc that's sticking out a little bit. They'll go, oh, that must be the cause. And then they'll recommend surgery. And Sarno said, well, that's not always the cause. A lot of times the cause is these little muscles, around the spine in the back are chronically tight from various emotional, issues that people are experiencing or problems they're experiencing. And it's that that's causing the pain. And if you get them to reduce their stress, if you get them to, relieve some of the issues that on their life, all of a sudden their back pain goes away and no surgery, no pills, no nothing. And that's what he found. And I think there's a lot of truth to it. But chronic anger is known to, produce heart attacks in people and strokes and high blood pressure. And it probably contributes to a lot of other illnesses that we haven't really proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that it does, but there's a lot of suspicion. So autoimmune diseases, cancer, various things. Anger can be a component, or emotional things that we hold on to emotionally and don't know how to release or let go of can be, if not the main cause, it can be, a secondary cause of a lot of those health problems. So that's another reason why, as a doctor, when you see all this and understand all this, and then you come up with a cure for anger, you can't just go and play golf all the time, just watch people suffer unnecessarily when you have something that can really help them. So that's why I've been doing this for 40 years. I've been teaching people and writing about it and doing seminars and workshops, because I really felt like once I understood what was going on, that this is a big part of the future of healthcare and keeping people healthy rather than just patching them up once they develop an illness.
And that's just a huge need that exists. And you are now, you're probably the first anger elimination expert I meet. I've met anger management experts, but you're the first anger elimination professional I meet.
There are a couple others. I've read some books by a couple. There's one book called Anger Elimination, where a mental health professional, and he says the same thing I'm saying. He says you don't have to have anger. People don't understand. People believe that it's just a natural part of life, an escapable part of life. He said, no, you can get rid of it, just like we're talking about. So he takes the same stance that I do. And then I just came across another book recently by a guy who's saying the same thing. He says, if you really understand the root causes of anger, and you do some internal work to change some of those false perceptions and false beliefs, your anger will just naturally go away. So there aren't many of us talking about that, but a lot of people have discovered the same thing that I've discovered. And it's very powerful, but it's just, anger management is just so dominant. Go punch a punching bag, go do exercise, go do deep breaths. That everybody's promoting that anger management approach, and it's really just symptom oriented. It doesn't really get at the root causes.
Mm.
Which is not good problem solving or philosophy.
What's your vision for the next, say, 5, 10 years of what you're doing, given that it's now you plus a few others, a handful of people doing this?
Yeah. I want to focus on helping prevent as many divorces as I can prevent, and help particularly dads be better husbands, be better fathers, be better business owners or managers, whatever they do in their career, by teaching them how to not get as angry as they may normally do, and how to let go of that anger quickly, so it doesn't disrupt their relationships. It doesn't cause them to get divorced. It doesn't cause their kids to stop wanting to be around them or talk to them. So that's one focus. But I also think that these principles that I and other people have discovered, they should be taught in schools. I mean, as early as junior high school, probably, when kids can understand beliefs and assumptions and perceptions. And definitely, you shouldn't be allowed to graduate college without understanding the mechanism of anger or other emotions like guilt and anxiety and worry and frustration. I mean, it's literally a crime that we're sending people out. We're sending them to college to prepare them for life and to have a successful life, and we don't teach them some basic emotion control, understanding, skills, which I didn't even get in medical school. I had to go way beyond medical school to figure this stuff out. But it really needs to get incorporated into, all levels of education when kids are young, and can really prevent a lot of illness. It can prevent a lot of divorce. It can prevent a lot of other, nasty things. So, not that I'm going to do that single-handedly, but any chance I get to support an initiative that would bring this kind of training into schools. And I did a couple of years ago, I had a chance to do a TEDx talk at a high school in New Jersey. And the topic of it was, what we should be teaching our kids about stress in high school. And I used anger as one of the prime examples of what we should be teaching, the kind of system that I teach. And because kids can easily understand it, pick it up and use it, and then be a lot less angry kids and then adults walking around if we did that, So any chance I get, I'm happy to promote that concept and contribute to that movement, getting started and expanding. And that would be great, if we could move that along further.
For parents, especially fathers, dads, like you mentioned, what's been say a story that you can share from one of your past experiences with clients working with a father, that so that listeners and viewers can perhaps see themselves in a similar situation. So what was it before? What was it after?
Well, I can tell you, there was one particular guy that was really sort of dramatic, and he had kids, but he was in his 60s, so he's married, he's retired, and he and his wife had this dream of buying an RV, and they live in Florida, and traveling around Florida as their retirement. And so they finally found an RV, a used RV that they liked. They bought it, and they went out on their first extended trip, and immediately, well, firstly, the background of this guy is he comes from a very angry family. So all of his brothers were angry. His mother was very angry. He was pretty angry during his life. And he got away geographically from the nest of anger that he was embedded in, but he still carried a lot of it with him when he went. So things started breaking down on the RV almost immediately. So he's cursing and screaming and throwing fits, and then he had never driven an RV before, so tractor trailers are zooming by and knocking him sideways, and he's just getting frustrated. Every little thing's going wrong, and none of it was directed at his wife, but his wife was like, it's a small compartment. She's a couple feet away, so she's experiencing all this anger from this guy, and when they get home and they walk out of the RV, she turns to him and she says, "I'm never going on another RV trip with you again until you get your anger issue handled." So he had followed me on Facebook. He knew the kind of work I do, and we hadn't had much interaction before that. But so he called me up and he asked me if I could help him. So I did. I met with him, told him I could help him if he was interested, and we started working. And I did my 10-session program with him. At the end of that 10 sessions, he was like a completely different human being. His wife couldn't believe how infrequently he was getting angry. She just didn't believe it. And he used to get angry on the golf course all the time. He stopped getting angry on the golf course when he missed a shot or something. He just totally transformed in 10 sessions. And they've gone on multiple trips since then. Everything's been cool. And she's just thrilled that he did it. And he's thrilled that he did it. And those are, I can't say I saved the marriage, but that marriage was going in the wrong direction, and we were able to turn around, and so it didn't go in that direction. Another example, I worked with recently, these are recent ones, worked with a woman who's an IT professional, and she had a 20-some-year-old special needs daughter that was living with her. And the daughter was fairly functional, but she had certain tendencies to misbehave and not function normally the way most people would function. And the mother would get into a rage every time the daughter misbehaved or didn't, do things that she was told to do and that she thought she should be able to do. And she came to me for help because she didn't like getting into rage episodes towards her daughter. She knew it wasn't good for her, and she knew it wasn't good for her kid. And again, I put her through the same program, and she had a major turnaround to where she was much less likely to get into a rage episode and much less likely to get angry at her daughter, and had a deeper understanding of what was going on in those situations where previously she was blind to all the internal stuff within her. And she had worked with a bunch of anger specialists in the past and hadn't really gotten any relief. And it wasn't until she worked with me with this approach that she was able to really get a handle on it. So over the years, there've been lots of people that I've been able to help them with their anger episodes, business owners, policemen, things like that, it really can work for anybody. Just a matter if they have the willingness to go after it. And a lot of times we're embarrassed about our anger. We don't seek help. Our pride gets in the way, and it's a shame because you don't have to carry all that anger around.
Yeah, I love that. In my certification of mental emotional release, which is a trauma release technique, I learned how to have clients release negative emotions. And guess what the first negative emotion is in the order? That's it. It's anger.
There's a lot of it. Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole world today is just on fire with anger. I mean, everybody's being stirred up to be angry at each other. And there are major forces that are behind that. The media, the politicians, they all want to get us angry and upset and motivated. So we'll support them and keep them in power. But and there's a lot of people carrying around past traumas and anger over past events. I remember years ago, this guy came to me for stress relief, and one of his problems was he was angry at his parents. Now, when he was a kid, when he was like 5 years old, he developed rheumatic heart disease, or affected one of the valves of his heart. And at that time, we didn't have the same treatment modalities that we have now. But what they did is they would put a child like that in a sanatorium for a year and take him out of, his social, away from his parents, and put him in a sanatorium and did whatever they did. And eventually a lot of them would get better. So this kid, that happened to him, and he was he was just really pissed at his parents because they rarely came to see him. He felt like he had been abandoned. He felt like he had been betrayed. And he carried this anger even after he got back. He carried this anger with him for all those years. So when he came to see me, he was like in his mid 40s. His father had died. His mother was still alive. And we're talking about this, and he's telling me how he's upset that they abandoned him and they didn't seem to care about him enough to go see him. And I said to him, have you ever talked to your mother about why they did that? What were they feeling? What caused them to not come and visit you? And obviously they must have cared about you. And he said, no, they didn't care about me. I said, well, have you ever talked to her about it and asked her? And he said, no. I said, well, I think you should do that. So he comes back the next session. He had talked with his mother, he'd been angry at for, well, he was 45 or 40 years, okay? And he said, I couldn't believe it. I talked to her and she told me why they didn't come visit me. She said they felt so guilty that they had to put him in the Senate, and they didn't have a choice really. They were mandated by their doctor to do it. They felt so guilty that they just couldn't go and see their child in that situation and feel that enormous guilt. They just felt too guilty to go. And it wasn't because they didn't love him. It's because they did love him and they felt so guilty about what they had to do for his health. And when he understood that, which he had never understood before, he went, oh my God, I've been angry at my parents for 40 years for nothing, for something I imagined that wasn't what really was going on. And he just, all of his anger towards his mother and his father, who was even dead, it just dropped away from that one conversation, and he had carried that all of his life, and he had never found out what the real truth was. So, I mean, there's all kinds of stories like that of people who have had major turnarounds in their anger just by correcting a misperception or misunderstanding or something like that, which we can do, if we just know the right way to do it.
Wow, that's just wonderful. Dr. Mort, you have a gift that you want to share with my audience. Can you talk a little bit about that gift?
Yeah, well, I put together a PDF called The Best Anger Elimination Method You Can Find. And it talks about what we've been talking about today. It talks about anger a little bit in general and the harmful effects of anger, but it also talks about my program, my 10-session program. It gives people some more information about that so they can decide if it's something they're interested in doing. And it's a short downloadable PDF that they can get by going to theangersolution.com. theangersolution.org. It's theangersolution.org. And they can download that, and I think it will be very helpful give them a little more details about what we've been talking about today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the time. I know that your time is valuable. And anything else you'd like to leave with the viewers or listeners that will be listening to this interview in the next months or days or years?
Yeah, one thing I didn't mention is when you go through this process through my system and you learn how to use it, you start to understand anger in yourself very deeply, where it comes from. You immediately get tremendous empathy and understanding for other people. When you see other people being angry, whether they're people you live with or people you just see on the street or even in a movie or something like that, when you understand the emotion of anger and how it gets generated at a very deep level, you have a lot of understanding and compassion for other people. Their anger doesn't make you angry like it used to because you have a new understanding of what's going on for them that they may not appreciate unless they go through a training program like that. But at least you understand, and that can help guide you and your actions with your loved ones and coworkers. And when they're in a fit about something or they're in a rage about something, you could have deep compassion and understanding for them, which is very beneficial in terms of our relationships with those people. So not only do you get to improve your own relationships by being less of an angry person, but you get to not create as much trouble when other people get angry, and then you're responding to that. So it's a very powerful methodology that brings a lot of wisdom to an area where most of the wisdom has been hidden for a long time.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mort. I appreciate you so much in the work that you do. I'm very glad that our paths crossed. Looking forward to collaborating, continue our conversations on that so we can help more and more people get to know your work experience, more freedom in their lives, less anger, less stress. And like you said here earlier, I believe, was it happier marriages, fewer regrets, and much less stress.
Yeah. That's what can happen when you learn how to just stop being an angry person.
Wonderful. Thank you again. Everyone listening, watching, thanks for tuning in. If you're feeling inspired by this conversation, download Dr. Mort's gift. It's right in the description of this, wherever you're watching or listening to this conversation. And aside from that, if you've been inspired by something you heard here today, choose 1, 2, or 3 people in your life that you can share that inspiration with, that insight. If you realize, you know what, I'm going to start being ... whatever it is, or I'm going to download this PDF so I can ... Share that with 1, 2, 3 people. And in the sharing, people can now expect that of you. They can start listening to you with a different ear, seeing you with a different eye. And it will help you in your transformation to become a person that can eliminate anger. So there you have it, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Dr. Mort. See you next time. Bye-bye for now.